in the nonprofit sector, and looks like with some educational institutions and such as that. So he's here to talk to us today about keeping donor development simple and effective. So Jeff, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Donna. And, for everybody that's joining us, thank you. And for those that are listening to the recording, thank you. And, I would just encourage, we've got an hour and we can, I don't want to be mindful of everybody's time, but certainly if there are things that we don't get to today and you want to follow up with an email or conversation, I'm more than happy to do that. So don't hesitate to do that. And I've got a lot of things to cover today. And really, again, as Donna said, really focused on fund development. And you're going to see some things around planned giving, especially, and also major gifts, and just hopefully some takeaways that help you as volunteers and in your leadership roles, and with your communities, have conversations with donors about their investments. So that's really the focus here. And in keeping it simple is really important to me, because a lot of this stuff can be intimidating. A lot of it can be, if you get into planned giving conversations, can be a little overwhelming. So hopefully some takeaways today that will help you, kind of with day-to-day things and in real life type of things that you can use. So Donna said a little bit about my background, and I've been doing this for a good long time, but Ashley Rountree, we work statewide. And so we've been all across the state, and we get up as far north as Indianapolis, we get down to Middle Tennessee, and we get over into actually Beckley, West Virginia as well. So, and have a few national clients as well, but that's just a little bit about us and what we do. So let me kind of dig in, and certainly if there are comments or questions, feel free to ask, and we will have time at the end here for anything in particular. But I thought I'd kind of start off with giving you a state of the nonprofit sector, and really kind of looking at calendar year in 2020, and then what's happening early here in 2021, just to kind of set the stage. And I sit on the board of the Kentucky Nonprofit Network as well, and they completed a survey here at calendar year end that really had some interesting takeaways, very specific to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And let me kind of run through those. But overall, in 2020, annual revenue, so this is total revenue. This is not just philanthropy, but that includes earned revenue and other revenue streams. But annual revenue was estimated to have decreased between 30 and 35% in 2020. So we took, our nonprofits, our communities took a big hit in that regard. And over 37% of the nonprofit organizational respondents in Kentucky reported a decrease in revenue. So, a little over a third. Over 31% reported they had to furlough or lay off staff or plan to do so. But also 20% reported they had to hire new staff due to increased service demand. So it was kind of a double-edged sword, if you will. We had organizations that, as revenues decreased, they had to make some tough decisions with staff. But then for many of our human service organizations, we saw an increase in demand for their services. And so many of them had to go out and hire new staff as well. We saw about 7% of Kentucky nonprofits shut down in 2020, and another 9% are expected to shut down by mid-2021. We're seeing that trend continue. And it's really interesting because pre-2020, we had conversations with funders that a lot of times they'd say, there are just too many nonprofits in Kentucky. And so it was a little bit of be careful what you wish for, because we're seeing a part of our sector have to close up their doors this year. And certainly that played itself out by the end of last year. The PPP loans help, were a lifeline to many organizations, but even now that second round is being expended pretty quickly. So that's, we're going to see a lot more conversation about this as we go. Some other, again, just kind of setting the stage facts, 46% of Kentucky nonprofits reported current expected reduction in services. Obviously, the human service side of things, we did see an increase in the demand. And again, 54% said expected increase. So that kind of, again, that adds up to 100%. So that makes sense. It really saw a lot of nonprofits concerned with staff burnout. And this is on the program side, this is on the leadership side, the operating side, but 78% of Kentucky nonprofits report concerns with staff burnout. And where we saw the most areas for increased need, food, housing, mental health, utilities, and employment services. And so that's across the Commonwealth. Those are some things that we saw. We know, a lot of you all in Eastern Kentucky are dealing with the flooding situation now. And, that's been more prevalent here in the last few weeks. So, we all know that these, in terms of areas of increased need, different things ebb and flow, but some of those basic human needs around food, housing, and utilities, and employment, are really prevalent, and we see those as needs moving into 2021. So let's talk about contributed revenue impact and what that looked like. And I'm going to start with special events, and we're going to move into, because a lot of my conversation today is going to be around individual giving, and you'll see why here in a moment. But we know that a lot of the organizations, a lot of the nonprofits in the sector, a lot of groups rely on events for different revenues. And so we saw a lot of folks make transition to virtual events, but overall in 2020, event revenue saw the greatest decline, even with that shift to virtual events. And we haven't gotten the final numbers in, but it's estimated to be down by more than 50% in terms of what that looks like. And that makes sense. Galas or dinners or lunches or breakfast or even golf scrambles, a lot of those things were canceled outright. There was that shift to virtual events, and those are still in play. But that event revenue that a lot of organizations depended upon and frankly built a lot of their fund development programming around went away. And they're trying to figure out how to bring that back. Some takeaways around special events, especially in 2021, is that transition has shifted to virtual events for a lot of folks. But we're seeing that those previously held in-person events that are continue being offered as virtual only. So maybe you shifted and it was an event in June or July of last year, and you're looking to another virtual event in June or July this year. We're seeing decreases in participants. It's just they're not as motivated this year to do a virtual event 2 consecutive years. They're organizations that kind of made the call early in 2021 that they're going to continue on with the virtual event path, but we're seeing decreases in participation. They were, a little novel at the time, and people weren't as burned out on Zoom and Teams and that type of a thing. So people participated, but that's starting to wane a little bit, and so we don't see that. We really see that the special events are going to have a tough 2021 like they did in 2020. But there's some creative things that are happening, virtual only campaigns and different events, and what we're seeing be more successful are not the hour-long or hour-and-a-half long virtual events, but they're very creative 15 and 20-minute kind of quick hit events where there might be an organization rallying around a low-cost, high-impact type of a project. And for example, we have one community in Kentucky, and this was led by a community foundation that was, they had an annual luncheon that usually lasted for about an hour and a half or so. And they tried to take it, they took it virtual last year, and they had about an hour-long event. And they asked folks just to, make their own sandwiches, make their own lunch, and join them for the event. And the attendance was pretty good. It was pretty strong, and there was good participation. Well, this year, when they first tried to launch kind of a similar thing, engagement from participants was less than half of what it was last year. So what they did was they shifted to a 15-minute event where they defined basically a high impact, low cost thing for their community. And basically what they said, we're going to purchase 4 defibrillator machines that we're going to put in downtown of this particular small town. And your participation in this 15, 20-minute event can help us purchase these things. And it was less than $10,000 they were trying to raise. And it was something that people could point to. They had somebody that gave kind of a testimonial of being in another small city and said, I had a heart attack and the defibrillator machine saved my life, and we can do that in our own community. So that's just an example of how they've shifted and being a little creative around that. And the appetite, again, for somebody to give 15 or 20 minutes was a lot greater than an hour and a half. And really the other big takeaway with events is if you can focus what you're doing around mission messaging. That's going to be really, really important. So what we're finding is participants are less compelled by setting an example for other donors, and they're more compelled by the opportunity to make a personal difference. So if you're able to, think about your events and how you're doing that, and how is what they are doing, their investment of their time and engagement is making a personal difference in the cause that they're supporting. That's been a really important piece that we've seen work. So that's a little bit about special event revenue. In looking at contributed revenue, the impact in 2021, corporate grants and sponsorships, majority saw a decline in corporate grants and sponsorships in 2020. And that's, that makes sense because a lot of those sponsorships were tied to events. So those organizations that were able to shift to more mission-based relationships on the corporate side of things were able to kind of hold their own there. But really a small percentage saw an increase and what that looks like in 2021 is still to be determined. The jury is still out as far as that's concerned. Now, what we're going to focus on in some additional conversation here is around individual giving. And this may be a surprise, it may not be, but giving from individuals remain the most steady source of all revenue sources in 2020 for the sector. And it's anticipated to grow in 2021. There's another slide, and so I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but giving actually increased by 2% in 2020 over 2019, giving from individuals. And so there was a slight increase. We anticipate a 4 to 6% increase in 2021. And that's really, really important. And when you think about the buckets of giving, the sources of philanthropy in Kentucky, and Kentucky matches the nation in this regard. And if you go back 27, 28 years now, it's been very consistent. Where are the sources of philanthropy? If you take out public funding streams, there are basically three sources. There are individual donors, there are corporate gifts and grants, and then there are private foundation grants. And this is toggled back and forth by a percentage point or two, but in Kentucky, 80% of all philanthropy comes from individuals. And that has held its own, given a percentage point or two up or down for 27, 28 years. 10% from corporate grants and sponsorships, and 10% from private foundation grants. And so, if you're asking me the question, where should we focus our efforts around philanthropy, where you're going to have the most opportunity for success is with individual donors. So that's really where it is. Now, the headlines that you're going to see are, well, this company, gave this to sponsor this particular walk or this particular organization, or this foundation made a grant. Those are the headlines that you see, but it's really where the bread and butter, the giving comes from is individual donors. So again, that's where, as we move forward here, we're going to spend a lot of our time. Revenue from foundation grants remains steady, but we did see a lot of shift to COVID relief and then social justice and equity type of things in 2020. And a lot of those organizations too, a lot of foundations overgave, if you will, in 2020. And they're trying to figure out what that's going to look like still for 2021. And we're still early for that. We have talked with a lot of private foundations who are going through still early rounds of strategic planning in 2021 to try to figure out what is the best path forward for their grant making. So we expect some clarity to that happen more in the spring and summer of 2021 moving forward. So individual giving focus. I mentioned this. Overall giving has grown by 2%. The giving is driven mainly by individual donors. This is important, I think, as well as the average size of individual gift grew from $617 in 2019 to $737 in 2020. So again, that's a pretty decent percentage jump. And again, it points to opportunity with individual donors. We've got strong economic indicators for 2021. I won't go through all that, but we saw good fourth quarter growth. We're seeing good first quarter growth. So that bodes well. The stock market's doing well for individual donors as well. And those are things that are all important. But it's also important to note that each nonprofit, each organization has its own revenue stream, and there are differences there. And for a lot of nonprofits, especially smaller nonprofits, and also for a lot of donors, it's really about regional economic indicators. It's not so much about the national economic indicators and measures, but what's going on regionally. So that impacts how and where nonprofits get their gifts, and kind of the feeling of the general donor population. But overall, as we look at things in 2021, we're off to a really strong start, and we're seeing a lot of activity. One of the areas that I'm not going to talk a whole lot about today is donor advised funds, but and I know the community foundations, that's a big part of kind of the model. But we have seen 2019 to 2020. This really started pre-pandemic, but we have seen just significant exponential growth in activity and grants from donor advised funds. And we expect that to continue as well. So that's kind of a snapshot, if you will, of kind of where we are, where we're headed, trends we're seeing in 2021, and kind of using that as a leap off point and focusing, again, on where should we spend our time if we're trying to have conversations about philanthropy. Where do we best spend our time? And my contention and focus where you're going to have the most success, again, is with individual donors. So what I want to kind of talk through next is what are some things that work, and what are some trends we're seeing, and so forth, in terms of having those conversations with donors. And I will be very candid. Part of my goal today is to give you all, in your respective roles, the confidence or increased confidence to have conversations with folks about their individual philanthropy and things that they can do, and really giving you the tools and the confidence to have those conversations, and hopefully eliminate some of the fear factor that goes along with that. The bottom line is that the donors and people who are generous, they want to have these types of conversations. They want to be asked to help, and you're asking them to help engage and be involved with things that are important to them. Their community and projects in the community, and priorities for the community, and needs in the community, whether that's around education or healthcare. And so, you're really helping them. The frame up is you're not asking them for money. You're really helping them fulfill a need and fulfill a desire that they have to engage and support things that are important to them. So with that, it really starts with effective communications, and this idea that donors want and need to have a relationship and feel engaged with the organization. That's never not been the case, but more so today than ever before. That's something that they want and they need. We did, my company, actually, Rountree, did a study about 15 years ago in Kentucky about where donors gave, and kind of how many organizations typically a donor or a donor family gave to. And we refreshed that study about 3 years ago as well. So 15 years ago, on average, donor families were giving to 14 or 15 different organizations in the course of a year. If we fast forward to 3 years ago, that has shrunk to on average 6 organizations. Okay, so they're giving, but typically the donor family or individual in Kentucky is they're giving to fewer organizations, but they're giving more to fewer organizations. So their focus is becoming a little more honed in on things that are important to them. And with that, they are also expecting to be more engaged, not with 15 different organizations, but with those 5 or 6 organizations that they are really, truly focused on. And so, that's a need that you need to recognize in the nonprofit sector that, you need to engage. They want to have this relationship with you. And what do they want? They want to feel like they have inside information. They want to feel like, a little bit of inside baseball, if you will, is going on, that they have some ownership in what you're doing. So what does that look like? You may have a press release that you're going to release to the public next week, right, about a particular announcement with your organization. Well, consider sending that to your donor base a week early and say, hey, we're going to announce this to the general public next week. We wanted you to know first because you're family. You're part of who we are and what we do. So that's an example of that inside information. They want to be educated. They want to know what you're doing. And we're going to talk about, the next bullet talks about storytelling. And that really hits with the education and inspiration part of things, and knowing that they're making a difference. And by far the best way to do that is storytelling, and telling the story of the people or the programs or that are being impacted by their support, directly by their support. And it wouldn't happen without them. So those are things that are working. And it's important, again, when you think about this communication strategy, that your donors are the reason that you can do this good work in the community. So you really always need to circle back to them and their impact. Multi-channel approach, we get asked this all the time. Well, how should I communicate? And really this multi-channel approach is best where it's a combination of email and making sure that it's personalized and responsive, text messages, meeting in person, the Zoom meetings, recording videos. This morning, I recorded 3 30-second videos on my phone. I sat on 4 different boards, and I recorded 3 videos that were 30 seconds each, and thanking donors to a couple of different organizations that I serve on the board on. And I made it personal, and then I just hit send. I sent them via email. And so those are very, very effective engagement and stewardship tools, but just recorded videos, again, that are personalized. Live streaming events, and then finally, handwritten letters. These are among the best, kind of a mix of these engagement and communication strategies, in addition to kind of some of your broader things with, kind of broader marketing and communication strategies. These are things that really you can personalize and you can get to help develop that relationship moving forward. So I'm gonna shift here, and again, we can come back in any comments or questions on any of this. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you, so I understand that. But I really want to make a case too for you to consider adding planned giving into the mix of your conversations with individual donors. So, and again, I'm going to hopefully make a case that and provide you with some tips and tools that make it easy to do so. But again, the fact of the matter, and I've said this a couple of times now, that individual giving still drives 80% of all philanthropy. And here's the thing. Individuals make planned gifts. Companies and foundations and special events don't make estate gifts to organizations. It's individuals. I mean, I know that's like, well, duh. That's a no-brainer. But you got to engage with individuals. And that's where planned gifts come from. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. A lot of times leaders too and organizations will say planned giving. So this is, planned giving is a gift that maybe they're making out of their estate. And so it might be a bequest, or it might be a gift of life insurance or another form. A lot of times people say, well, if I talk to somebody today and they're 60 years old and I ask them to make a planned gift, that gift is not going to be realized for another 20, 30 plus years. So, but I need help today. And there are some strategies that you can undertake, and we'll talk about some of that and some of the follow-up information I'll provide. Planned giving conversations can and will make an impact on current year giving. So that's, not anything you need to worry about. The other part of this is really a robust and impactful program, could be focused on 8 to 10 donor prospects a year. You don't need to think, okay, I've got to have this conversation with 100 or a couple hundred different people. You can really move the needle in a pretty significant way by focusing on 8 to 10 donors a year and have some impact. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the other piece, and this kind of, again, reflects on the keep it simple side of things. There are, I don't know if we have any financial planners on the call here today, but there are, dozens and dozens of vehicles, gift planning vehicles that people can look at. And a lot of times when you begin to have a conversation with somebody about a charitable remainder unit trust or a charitable remainder annuity or things like that, their eyes begin to glaze over. It's just too much. And, this idea of keeping it simple really plays itself out. And the fact of the matter is that 80% plus of all realized planned gifts in the past 5 years have come from 2 sources. It's simple bequest, meaning that a donor has added the organization to their last will and testament. And by the way, they don't have to rewrite their will. They can add a codicil to their will that is 2 or 3 sentences long, and it can be very, very simple. It can be a dollar amount, or it can be a percentage of their estate that they're leaving to an organization or set of organizations. And that, combined with gifts of life insurance, and this is really important, is it's not going out and selling new life insurance policies or anything like that. So you're not aligning yourself with an insurance agent. My dad's a State Farm agent, and he doesn't like me saying this, but it's no, Dad, it's not going out and selling new life insurance. It's existing life insurance policies that people have. And so as they age, it's asking them to make their favorite organization, your affiliate community foundation, a beneficiary, either full or part of an existing life insurance policy that they have. You could also ask them to turn over ownership of that life insurance policy. And it's very simple. It's a 1-page form that is required to do that. So it's very simple. And you have, the population of folks that, are going to have a last will and testament and also have life insurance is greater than those that might have to go through a more sophisticated financial modeling process. So keep it simple. Those are 2 areas that you can really make a difference in with planned giving. So let me tell you about the impact of planned gifts. And you may have heard about Mr. Martin in Muhlenberg County, who basically, he left $50 million to the county and established the Felix E. Martin Jr. Foundation, which is part of community foundation funding. And this is a big gift. This is a lot of money. But he never married, didn't have any children. What he did was left the bulk of his estate to the good of the citizens of Muhlenberg County. And, that 50 million has actually turned into about an $84 million gift. And this was a few years ago. So it's actually been more than that, but huge impact. During his lifetime, Mr. Martin made gifts estimated, and this is coming from some of the folks that were close to him. He made gifts during his lifetime that totaled about $2.5 to $3 million. But at his death, looking at gifts of assets, he left $50 million to Muhlenberg County. So that $2.5 to $3 million during his lifetime is certainly impactful and impressive. But what he did here in Kentucky and Muhlenberg County with $50 million is the impact is still being felt today. So you may be saying, hey, that's a guy that, had $50 million to give away, right? Yes, that's true. But let me give you another example. And this is an example that just happened within the last 2 months. And it's Mary Alice Lawler. And Miss Lawler, I had the opportunity to meet her once, but she was a school teacher for 40 years, married, 2 kids, very humble life. Her husband predeceased her. When she passed away last year, she left estate gifts totaling $4 million to 4 different organizations, $1 million to each of the 4 different organizations. Now, the real important thing here is she was on nobody's radar. This was not disclosed. This was not told beforehand. Her largest documented gift to any of these 4 organizations during her lifetime was $1,000. So she was not going to be anybody necessarily that maybe the organization said, well, this is quote unquote a usual suspect. This is a community leader. This is a business titan. This is somebody that has a lot of wealth. No, this is a pretty humble, kind of behind the scenes person, a school teacher who is making an impact with $4 million to 4, $1 million to 4 different organizations that, it was kind of like the millionaire next door, if you will, or the widow's mite that you might think about. And here's my point with this is you as an organization should never make the decision for the donor. You should never say this person can give or can't give. You got to give the donor the opportunity to make their own decisions. So going back to this strong communication strategy, this engagement, these relationships are really, really important, because you're going to have, now the other thing with Ms. Lawler that I hadn't said is with at least 3 of these organizations, she had been giving faithfully and consistently an annual gift for over 20 years, consecutive years to each of these organizations. And it was not much. I think with one, it was around $50 a year. So she was completely bought into the mission of these organizations, and she was giving what she could during her lifetime. And then she made a point of doing something extraordinary at her passing with plain gifts. So what I'm trying to, and I may be preaching to the choir here. I don't want to, I just want to emphasize the impact of plain gifts and what they can make. Current giving is great, but the idea of what the impact of giving from assets can do is more significant. So what do you do? How can you take these steps to get people to move down this path? So I'm going to give you again some steps to take here, and again I'm going to kind of go a little bit fast through some of these, but some steps you can think about, and how does this, how can you individually in your role, and then how can your organization do these things? But first off, and I call it creative remote engagement just because of the times we're in with COVID, is, don't let the barrier of not meeting in person take away the conversations. When COVID first started, pandemic first started, people said there is no way that we can solicit somebody or have a conversation about a major gift or a planned gift. There's no way I can ask somebody for 6 figures or 7 figures or sometimes even 5 figures over a Zoom video call. Well, that is a myth that's been busted. We're having conversations and seeing conversations all the time. So don't, continue the 2-way conversations. That can be by picking up the phone. That can be, over Zoom video, but focus on the relationship and, again, the multi-channel communication strategies. And again, I'm re-emphasizing some things we already said, but keep it flowing, keep it personal, in things like handwritten postcards or notes, those personal video greetings. Let your donors know you're thinking of them. It takes just a little bit of time, again, a 30-second video, and then maybe, take a couple minutes to write a handwritten note. That gets people engaged. That tells folks that you're thinking of them, and it cultivates that relationship. Information. And again, we talked earlier that people are craving information. So these ideas about virtual town halls and coffee breaks, 15 and 20 minutes, chats with your essential program leaders, keeping those loyal, longtime donors in the know about your mission impact right now, so that they know that what you're doing is important for the community. Remind them why they love you, especially our older donors and older individuals. They love to reminisce, right? So pull some things back from the archives. I know Berea College, Donna, and University of Kentucky, if you look at some of their communications, like on the back of their newsletters and things, they're going to have an old photograph from 1950 or 1960 or early 70s. And people love to take a look at that. And that's, again, it kind of reminds them of why they were with you in the first place, that reminiscing time of things. This is another idea that works as well, is just kind of serving in a role as a trusted advisor. So it's really taking your hat off, and it's not just about your organization, but how can you provide resources and support that can help donors with any charitable planning conversations or questions. And we've really advised a lot of groups to quit saying, this is how you can help our organization. It's really how can we help you achieve your philanthropic goals and dreams? So it's shifting that conversation. And again, I'll go back to that notation that most individuals have. Their number of organizations are supporting has decreased, but they still have 4, 5, 6 organizations on average that they work with. So in addition to your organization, your foundation, your program, you got to realize that donors have other interests. And that could be their house of worship, that could be their church, that could be their alma mater, that could be their kids' activities. And so if you could put yourself in a position of saying, hey, I can help and I can serve in a trusted advisor role, that's going to help move things forward as well. And then we talked about storytelling, share those stories and highlight examples of the investments that donors like them have made and the impact that makes. So that's kind of, again, I'm giving you maybe a little bit more around the communication strategy to get that engagement strategy going as well. I think my computer may have just frozen. Oh, there we go. Keep it simple, additional steps to take. This idea of stewardship still matters. And just kind of keeping this front and center. The galas, the luncheons, we may not have those right now, but it's really about connection and engagement. Zoom teams and calls become the norm, but there's also a fatigue factor now with those mediums. So don't overdo it with those, but balancing it out. And again, I'm gonna suggest that 15 or 20 minute rule is something that helps with that as well. Another piece that we have found to be really, really effective in engaging with folks and the quarantining and COVID, we've seen there's research behind this as well, is using e-surveys. And the number of folks that have actually responded to e-surveys has increased since COVID has started. And it's simple, non-invasive. We suggest you could ask questions, that are or have surveys that are no more than 3 to 4 questions in length. Keep it really simple, and just ask them, hey, what do you think about this program, or what do you think about that program, or what's the most important thing that we've done in the last 6 months that you know of. And just giving people an opportunity to continue to express themselves is really important as well. So that's another kind of very specific engagement opportunity. And I know there are other ideas, and what I really encourage you all to do is just share those ideas, what's working and what's not in terms of that stewardship piece. So this idea of major giving and plan giving too, there are words that work, right? And And so these are other ways. Internally, we talk about planned giving. Internally, we talk about major giving from donors. But externally, one of the phrases that's really working with folks is transformational giving. And building stories around that, building engagement points around that, but talking about transformational giving. And really also in other words that are kind of telling a better story versus planned giving or major gifts or phrases like major gifts of assets or asset-based philanthropy. What that does is it just begins to paint a picture for folks beyond, well, what kind of check can I write today to what type of legacy can I leave tomorrow? And really that begins to allow your donors to better understand the opportunity that lies before them. And frankly, it can help sell the idea of more attention to this with CEOs and boards, because then you're getting folks thinking bigger. And again, it kind of begins to impact current year giving as well in a bigger way. So this reframe, these words that work are really important. And they also do a good job of planting seeds for the future. And this idea of about asset-based philanthropy, asset-based giving, it's a powerful longer-term solution. So again, it's just some short, simple shifting of words that you use. And, in our mindset, there's no reason to wait on that, and just begin to reframe that language in a different way. So this idea too, and I'm going to talk about blended gift discussions. And then, I also have a slide in here that it's like, well, how do you initiate the conversation? So I'm going to share that with you as well. So I don't want you to think about, I'm just saying, okay, here are things you can do, but I really want to share with you an approach as well to how do you initiate that conversation with an individual. The blended gift discussions are basically, we saw these start to really become popular with donors at the end of 2018. And it's really where you are saying, let's have a comprehensive conversation that can be focused on a multi-year pledge. And that could be for annual fund. It could be a multi-year pledge for a major gift, but it also includes a conversation around a planned gift. And it's basically one page. It's a plan on a page. So it's not that you're having separate conversations about any of those three areas. It's where you're having one conversation that begins to frame up the opportunity for a gift plan, a philanthropy plan for the donors to your organizations. And again, we're seeing this for long-time annual fund donors, not just major gift donors as well. And I'll give you an example of this. And this is a big example, but there was a gift made to one of the colleges in Kentucky last year that was announced at a $14 million gift. And the initial conversation with the donor started at a $250,000 level, and it ended at $14 million. And the initial conversation for $250,000 was kind of your typical proposal. It said, would you consider a gift of $50,000 a year for the next 5 years to make a gift of $250,000? And as the conversation with the donor evolved, and this is where active listening and listening to the donor's needs kind of came into play, the donor began to describe a number of different things, saying things like, we've got this land that is in Eastern Kentucky that is farmland, and none of our heirs is interested in it. None of our heirs wants it. We don't know what we're going to do with it. And then it got to another part of the conversation where they said, when this gentleman retired and he left his company, he was given a life insurance policy as kind of a parting gift, and they didn't really need that anymore. So where that $250,000 conversation evolved to was a plan on a page that included a $50,000 a year gift for 5 years, but also a gift of property. And then also making the owner, the organization, the college, an owner and beneficiary of the life insurance policy. And that resulted in a $14 million commitment. So it wasn't just laser focused on here's a 5-year, what can you write us a check for, or give us a gift of appreciated assets? It evolved because there was listening involved with this. And so that's an example. And again, you can fill in the blanks with numbers that are relevant. It really doesn't matter, but that's, those are conversations that we're seeing more and more donors want to have. And it's kind of one proposal outline highlighting multiple ways to make an impact. And as a follow-up here, I'd be happy to share with everybody like an example, just a Word document that says, here's what that looks like. But the other thing that is supporting this in 2020 is the health crisis that we had. And so, basically more people are thinking about their mortality, and they're acting in updating or making their estate plans. And they're finding out that their assets are going to go one of 3 places: to their heirs, to taxes, or to charity. And if I have a conversation with somebody and says, well, hey, do you want to give more to the government, or would you rather give more to charity? It's a pretty simple question. Most people, I've never had anybody say, I want to give more, I want to pay more in taxes, right? So it's going to go one of 3 places, folks, and you need to have those conversations. So this idea of a blended gift conversation is really something that we're seeing a lot of donors of all shapes and sizes, if you will, gravitate to and have an interest in. So here's kind of, and we're getting close to the end here, but I do want to open it up for questions and comments, and I'm willing to stick around for as long as anybody wants. But how do you initiate that conversation? And, there are kind of 3 things that are inherent in this. Is number 1, have patience, because it may take a little longer to get from beginning conversation to end. Second, it's active listening. And again, patience, it's going to take time. So be patient, active listening, expect it to take some time. But this is a general frame up. And I am going to read this, but you might approach somebody and say, okay, so again, part of the big barrier we've heard from folks is, I don't know how to have that conversation, but here's what I'm going to suggest to you. And then I'm going to reframe it to another way, but it might be, Mrs. Smith, we cannot thank you enough for your generosity and commitment to our community, or to our organization. You've been a long time and consistent donor. You've impacted the lives of so many current residents, so many folks that are involved with our program, and it's impacted lives for generations to come. And I don't know if you've known this, but we've realized that you've been involved with us for over 2 decades, and you're among our most committed supporters. So we just want to thank you. I just want to thank you for what you've done. We're so very grateful, and I really, really hope that you are seeing continuously the progress you have made possible. Now, you may not be aware, but many of our donors who make annual gifts also have included our organization in their estate plans or made a major gift commitment. And here's what I'd like to ask you, if we could have a conversation. Would you consider allowing us to present you with a proposal that would outline a plan for making a legacy level commitment to continue supporting our mission at a leadership level? Is that a conversation we could have? And that's it. That opens the door. So it's not saying, I've got a proposal for you to consider for X amount of dollars, or here's our priority project that needs funding. It's you have been with us for a long time, or maybe not so long, but you're an important donor, and we're grateful. And there's more that we'd like to talk with you about. So can we have that conversation? Now, if you are a donor yourself to the organization, and so maybe you're not a staff member, but you're a board member, another nuance with this type of an approach, and again, it's just a conversational, relational approach, is saying, I know this organization is important to you because it's important to me as well. And I've made arrangements in my estate to make a significant investment for the organization in the future. And I'd like to invite you to join me in doing the same. And it's not about giving details about what you've done or haven't done. It's saying, I'd like, and the key phrase there is, I would like to invite you to join me. Is that a conversation that we can have? And would you be willing to allow us to have a conversation around that? So hopefully, again, this maybe gives you a little bit of a script, a little bit of a template to think about when initiating that conversation, to talk about how folks can enhance their philanthropy and be a generous investor in your organization. So some real quick other closing thoughts here, and then we'll get to questions and comments. Is you can't stop, you can't move forward. If you stop, if your organization isn't doing these types of things, other organizations are, and they're going to move past you. And donors will gravitate to other areas of interest. And I look back to 2008, the recession that hit then in 07, 08. Those organizations that paused or stopped and because they thought, well, these are tough times, and they were making the decision for the donor. We saw many of them still in recovery mode in 2019, and then 2020 hit, and it was even tougher for them. So don't do that. Move forward. I think you need to have a mindset that 2021 is going to be as tough or tougher than 2020, but recognize those opportunities for philanthropy with individuals. And again, don't make the decision for the donor. Give them the opportunity to engage with you. Focus on efforts and impact and storytelling, again, around those areas of your organization or your community that have the highest impact and relevancy. Storytell. Let constituents know about continued specific needs. And, again, just I'm kind of reiterating this, but if you stop, donors will move on to something else. You cannot stop. And then finally, if you need help, ask for it. The biggest reason donors don't give to organizations is they say, well, you never asked. The second biggest reason donors don't give to organizations is they say, well, we feel like you're asking all the time, so it's a little bit of a balance there. But again, if you go back to a conversation and a relationship where you're educating and showing impact, it doesn't feel like you're asking, but then you move to that point where you are making the ask for what you need. So I'll stop there. And I know through a whole lot of information at you guys, and hopefully it's some things that you can take and use boots on the ground and day to day. But I don't know if there are any specific questions or comments, anything that we touched upon. I'd be happy to expand upon, or anything maybe that we didn't touch upon, talk about as well.
Jeff, when you make your list, you said concentrate on about 8 to 10 donors per year.
Yep.
Are you recommending like really close contacts or individuals that you just know might give, or how do you?
Great question. Where do you start there? Yeah, that's a great question, Kathy. So where we've seen the biggest impact is current and past board members. And you might even look at past board members. That's a great list to look at. And you might say, we'll go back 10 years and I might pick 8 to 10, 12 past board members that we know were engaged in the organization and maybe still are. And maybe a couple of current board members, but that's a great place to start and initiate that type of conversation. The second list is we would recommend that if depending on how robust your database is and how much history you have there, is running a list of all donors that have given to you in at least 10 consecutive years or greater. So if they've made a gift of $25 a year in each of the last 10 years or more, I'm going to run that list and I'm going to see who those folks are. And the reason why they're really, really good is you don't have, they're sold out on your mission. You don't have to, to convince them that what you're doing is good. They've been with you. And so I'm going to run that list, see what that looks like. And then I'm probably going to begin to focus on donors in the kind of 65 to 75 year age corridor that I might have, relationships with. If I get past 75 years old, what we have found, and again, this is really getting, very detailed, most of those folks have already made arrangements in their estate planning. So, and sometimes they aren't super willing to change. So, I'm going to focus on that kind of 65 to 75-year-old corridor. So, Kathy, that's where I would kind of begin to focus to get that list together.
Jeff, Jane had asked whether we could get copies of the slide presentation
Yeah,
will be, okay. So we
yeah,
can
yeah.
send that out
Oh,
when
you can
we
send that out. Yeah,
the
sure thing.
recording.
Send that out.
Okay, great.
Yeah, definitely. And please feel free to share this with other, others. I want others to see all this. Not a problem.
Great, thank you.
Sure. And I will add, I've got a few follow-up pieces that I've kind of gone, I usually go back and forth. Sometimes I've sent them out ahead of time, but I'll send out, Donna, to you as well, some follow-up materials. Again, kind of a template for this plan on a page. How do you present a proposal? What's it look like, right? The second thing is just a quick glossary, kind of a cheat sheet of plan giving terms, because that can be kind of intimidating to folks as well. And just a couple other resources. And so I'll send that to you, Donna, and again, feel free to share that
Sure.
with whoever.
Sure, we'll get that out. As we send out the recording, we could send all that in one package so that folks have
Great.
everything all together. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great.
I was going to ask for that plan on a page. That sounded intriguing to me.
Yeah, we'll get that to you. And again, it's just when you see it, it doesn't really translate in a PowerPoint presentation, but we see it on a Word document, Jane.
Sure.
I think it's very straightforward. So I'll make sure we include that.
It will help not forget something important.
Right. That's right. That's right.
I think that-
Yeah. And I will tell you real quickly too, that with the plan on a page, typically when we're having this conversation, I'll have one that has some things filled in. Okay. And then I'm going to have, right. Yeah. They give some suggestions. Yeah.
Oh,
But I'm also, then I have a blank one, too. So yeah, I have two. I have both. Yeah, definitely. And so you can kind of fill it in as you go. And it's just a really easy, nice tool.
Well, that's where that active listening comes in.
Right. Exactly.
Well, they're using that to capture they know you're engaged with what they're saying. And
That's
that's
right.
helpful, especially those who might not have done this before.
Yeah. Yeah.
The structure would be very helpful.
Good. No.
You mentioned there was just a couple of sentences that people could add to their will or their
Yeah.
request. So that
Yeah.
would be helpful. Jane probably knows those sentences, being an
Well, it's a
attorney.
codicil. A
Codicil.
codicil is a separate
Yeah, okay.
document. It has to be executed with the same formalities as a will, but it is just a paragraph. I mean, I was looking at one the other day I had done for a man who wanted to change his will to go ahead and give some real estate to one person instead of, well, it didn't change anything in his will other than it took that piece of real estate out and gave it to this particular beneficiary, as opposed to divided among 2 or 3 people. So their codicils are very simple.
Yeah. But I'll send a quick example of that too, just so everybody has that. But yeah, they're very simple.
Great. Great.
Well, let me thank you all and let me encourage you, please don't hesitate. Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
I just saw Shreka's, she was asking about the videos that you talked about earlier, the 30-second videos.
Yeah.
If maybe you would share those, the thank you, I think you said.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
30
I'll give a couple of examples of that. And they are, and again, think low tech. I mean, this is on your phone. This is not a production, and it's okay to kind of fumble through your words because it makes it real, right? And it's sincere. And so don't worry about like, oh my gosh, I got to get this just right. But I'll send a couple examples of that as well. And those are, I got to say, I mean, again, 30, it's just a thank you video, or, hey, I want to give you an update. You may be out on site at someplace too. And I don't know, it could be a kid's playground or a school, whatever. And you're standing there and there's that in the background. And I just want to, let me tell you because of your generosity, Kathy, this is what's happening today. And I just want to thank you, and so it's that short, sweet, and unslick, if you will. So.
Great.
but yeah, if you all, again, I do want to encourage you, if you have any comments or questions, you may let this kind of settle a little bit. And if there's anything else that resonates, don't hesitate to reach out. This is, all my contact information is here. Send me an email. Email's the best way. And if I don't respond to you right away, give me, I'm getting about a couple hundred emails a day, and everybody's getting a lot in their inbox, but I will respond. I promise you. It may take me a couple days, but I'll respond and be happy to do so.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Wonderful. Well, thank you all. Jeff. All right. Well, again, thank you all. I appreciate Kathy and Donna reaching out to do this. And I really appreciate what all you guys are doing, especially again, with some of the communities hit recently with the flooding, and know that you all are stepping up in a huge way for people in need and the communities in need. So just honored to be a part of this today.
We really
Yeah, I have, this is Surekha Nadiwar. I just have a question. I don't know whether it is the right place to ask, but I will. I'm interested in our Floyd County, helping the people, but more so I'm interested in bringing Floyd County better, making it better. In other words, people are there, I'm helping the cause and all that is okay. But how about the future of Floyd County? And I'm sorry, I'm too much interested in Floyd County, but that's how I am. This is my home. And is there a way I can do something to bring more businesses, make a better place so our young people can come back to our county and prosper it? And if there is, I would like your input on it.
Yeah, no, well, thank you for your commitment to the county, because, and your passion there is very evident. I think, pulling small groups of people together and sharing that passion and sharing, that you're committed to making the county better for future generations. Even looking for, I kind of go back to, what's something you could do. You could have a 20-minute coffee chat on Zoom with 4 or 5 other people, and engage with them and ask them, say, here's what I want to do, and how can you envision yourself being engaged? But I think sharing that passion and then looking for invitations for others to engage and give, then to support those efforts is certainly a path forward.
Good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thanks everybody. I know we went a little long, but appreciate that. And again, Donna, Kathy, thank you. And
thank you.
Let me know anything else.
All right. Well, we'll copy you on the email, Jeff, that we send out. That has the link, and we'll get all those materials from you before we send that. And so you'll see what goes out to everybody. So
terrific.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, and have good afternoons. And thanks for joining us.
Bye. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Donna.
Thanks. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.